أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
ادع إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة وجادلهم بالتي هي أحسن إن ربك هو أعلم بمن ضل عن سبيله وهو أعلم بالمهتدين.
We want to start, thank ICC for hosting this very important event. Thank CARE and our guest speaker who is on her way from the airport, in fact. The family attorney. MashaAllah, we're blessed that she'll be joining us and share a really unique perspective. So I'm going to start, inshallah, with a few words. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Subhanallah, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves somebody, He tells the angels, He tells Jibreel alayhi salam that Allah loves this individual, make an announcement so that people should also, that the malaika should also love this person. And then an announcement is made and the malaika begin to love this person. And then an announcement is made and the inhabitants of the earth begin to love this person. And subhanallah, I mean, these three individuals, Liya, Yusuf, and Lazan, most of us probably didn't know them. I didn't know them. And yet I feel like it's, you know, somebody I went to college with, that I'm that close that we lost. And many of you feel the same way. This love is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instilled within us because He loved them. He loved them, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I mean, subhanAllah, if you look, what type of impact they had in their life on the community, Muslim and non-Muslim, that you have such an embrace by the entire country, entire world, looking towards these people with love, making dua for them. Over 5,000 people prayed their janazah yesterday. And gatherings like this all around the country and all around the world, people making dua for them, remembering them, and taking lessons from their life. So I want to share with you very quickly, we're going to talk about tonight their legacy. We're going to talk about how it makes us feel, because we go through different emotions: pain, grief, confusion, anger, you know, inspiration. And so we're going to talk about those things, inshallah, but I want to lead with three lessons from their life, because we'd be remiss if we didn't pay attention to the lessons from their life. And those three lessons are, the first, and for those of you that were at jum'a in Scottsdale, this is repetition, but وَذَكِّرْ فَإِنَّ الذِّكْرَى تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, that reminders benefit the believers. The first is that death is imminent. The first is death is imminent. The second is they lived lives of dedication to Allah and devotion and service. That was their life mission. Devotion to Allah and service to humanity. So if we instill those things within us, we'll have a similar result on people. And the last one is, how do we move forward from that? And I'll leave that third point, inshallah, for Karen and for Linda. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ, that every soul shall taste death. Now we think of death, most of us, as something that happens to old people. When I get old, or my parents get old, then the general sort of, you know, process of life is that it ends at some point. And for old people, these guys were very young, subhanAllah. 21, 23, 19, and they died. Allah, so I shouldn't say they died, because the ayat that I recited in Salat al-Isha, it says don't refer to people who died in the cause of Allah or who were killed in the cause of Allah as dead. بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ. Nay, they are alive with Allah, getting their provision from Allah, their sustenance, no fear, no grief upon them, because we believe they were martyrs. Right? This whole notion of a parking dispute is simply insulting. Right? And again, they'll discuss this, but it's insulting. That somebody can come into your house and execute 3 people and call it a parking dispute. It's insulting. So these were people that they were ready to die though. SubhanAllah, they lived their life in preparation for akhirah. كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ. We should ask each and every one of ourselves, should ask us, if that were to happen to me, would I be prepared to meet my Allah? You know, what type of service am I doing? Let's look at what they did in their life. Their life was devotion to Allah. They proudly wore their hijabs. You watch the videos, it makes you cry. They were proud to be Muslim, they were proud to be American, they were proud to do service to others. Habitat for Humanity, feeding the homeless, raising money for Syrian refugees in Turkey. I mean, this is a testament. In Islam, we say that a sign of acceptance is that when you start something, you're able to continue to do it. And the ultimate sign of that is that if you're able to continue to do it after your life. He was raising money for Syrian refugees. On the night of his passing, the night that he became a shaheed, there was about $16,000 to $17,000 online. And as of this morning, I don't know what it is as of today, but as of this morning, it was over $300,000. SubhanAllah. After his death, what kind of person he must be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues to give him reward. People continue to be inspired by the work that they did. Razan and Yusuf, the same thing. So they were people who had devotion to Allah, and this is something that all of us should reflect upon. If this event doesn't make me closer to Allah, then there's a problem. Their dad, the girl's dad yesterday in the janazah, he says, if you haven't listened to it, you should listen to it. They're incredible families, mashallah. To be able to cope with such tragedy, with such composure, resilience, courage. He says that for all of you youth who look up to Leah and Yusuf and Razan, I want to tell you that the way to honor their legacy is to be better Muslims. Is to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He tells the parents in the audience, he says, for those of you that are parents, if you don't want to have any regrets in your life, raise your children with Islamic values, character, and morals. This is what he's telling, that he tells all of the audience, the thousands, the many non-Muslims that were in the audience, that were honoring them, all these vigils around the country. People are so touched by their life. He tells them that if you want to honor them, look into Islam. It's not what you see in the media. It's not American Sniper. It's not ISIS. They were examples of Islam. They were ambassadors of Islam. And they didn't go around carrying a flag and say, constantly doing da'wah. Their da'wah was their life. Their da'wah was their smile. Their da'wah was their hijab. Their da'wah was, getting married very young and avoiding all of the temptations and the fitna that's outside. That's so easy outside. They lived Muslim lives, and in that they inspired and they touched others. So that's point number 2. The first is that death is imminent, and that we all should be prepared. If we're not doing our obligations, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي, verily my salah, meaning my ritual prayer. Sometimes we think, oh, if I just do good, I'll be okay. But it starts with the obligations to Allah. Inna salati wa nusuki, and all of my good worship, everything I'm doing, wa mahyaya, and my life and my death, wa mamati lillahi rabbil alameen. That's what they were, living examples. And I told this earlier, it's so beautiful. Leah's profile on Vine. Most of you guys know Vine is the short videos you can post online. His profile said 4 things. It just said Islam, family, career, basketball. That's what it said. I mean, this is a person who had his priorities right. He had his priorities right. First thing is Islam, then family, then career, and then, your entertainment. For him, it was basketball. For a lot of us, it is as well. But you have to have your priorities right in life. That if Islam is your purpose, your goal, كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ وَإِنَّمَا تُوَفَّوْنَ أُجُورَكُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ فَمَنْ زُحْزِحَ عَنِ النَّارِ وَأُدْخِلَ الْجَنَّةَ فَقَدْ فَازَ. That whosoever is saved from hellfire, entered into Jannah, that person is indeed successful. That's the ultimate success. It's not getting a good degree, making a lot of money, having a good life, and a nice house. Those are great. But that's not true success. That's why their Facebook page is known as Our 3 Winners. Because they were winners. They won. We know they won. فَقَدْ فَازَ. So the question is, how does it impact us? Are we inspired by them to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to dedicate our life to service? If you're going to take something away from this, take away that I'm going to dedicate my life to service. And there's frankly not enough service activities in our community. So that means some of you have to take leadership roles and create them, right? If there's no group that's going to feed the homeless, you need to create it. If there is, you need to empower it. You know, have all these good deeds, Habitat for Humanity abroad and domestically, we need to fill all of those needs. And simply doing them is our da'wah. Doing them with a smile, doing them looking like a Muslim with a hijab, with a Muslim name, those are, you know, that's da'wah. That's more powerful than a speech, than a pamphlet, than a book that you could ever give to anybody. So those are my two lessons, inshallah, for you, that let's all be cognizant that death is not something that only happens to old people. It was a shocking reminder for me. All three were younger than me. And subhanAllah, they left from this world, and in their death, they're able to inspire so many people. What are people going to remember us for? That's something that we need to reflect upon. How are people going to remember me? Is it just going to be my family? Or is it going to be, you know, are the masajid, how many people are going to come to my janazah and make dua for me from locally and all around the country? You know, to such an impact that this is a watershed moment for Muslims in America. And this is the part that Karen and Linda will talk about. But this is our real moment to stand up and say, we are proud to be Muslim and we are proud to be here. And you can't, our lives are valuable and our lives are meaningful and they're contributing to society. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant them the highest place in Jannah. The highest place in Jannah. They're shuhada, as we said, they're martyrs. Some of you may have seen on Facebook, but it gives you goosebumps. There was a picture that when they found Lia's body, and remember he had been executed, shot in the back of the head, it said that his right index finger was raised. SubhanAllah. Now, like you can't have that type of death without living that type of life. Without a life of khidmah and a life of dedication to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept them as shuhada. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant patience to their families. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests people commensurate with His love for them. I mean, those families must be so beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They said in an interview, Lia's brother said yesterday that we're not grieving, we're not sad. We told our mom, congratulations, you raised shaheed. What type of family that must be. Islamic values, morals, courage. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on them and give them sabr and patience, and particularly their mothers. How difficult it must be for them to bury their children. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them all the reward of all the people that are gathering and not let their deaths die and be in vain, so that we are inspired to do good and to stand for civil rights and to be people of khidmah. I would ask inshallah that all of you for them. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanakallah wa bihamdihi, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum. It has been a painful last few days for everyone. The murders of our brother Dia Barakat and sisters Yusr and Razan Abu Salah. Their passing will not go in vain, and I'm here to discuss the importance of this event. We all know that the Quran teaches us that taking one life is like killing all of humanity, and saving one life is like saving all of humanity. These three precious lives truly killed every Muslim in this country. We can all see ourselves in Dia, Yusr, and Razan. We must never forget that the three precious lives he took represented American Muslims living in America in this century. We must never forget that these awesome American Muslim lives, they lived their life with the principles of Islam and with the opportunities that are afforded to all of us Americans. We must not forget that these beautiful people worked to serve their community and abroad. and strive to improve themselves every day. From the little that we do know, we know that they understood the key to being a good Muslim, and that is to live the positive values that are instilled in them from their faith. We must not forget that with every hardship comes ease. فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. The question is not what's going to be done with the killer, but rather what are we to do from here on as Muslims in America. From here, we work for justice. From here, we work to amplify the positive values that Muslims are actually taught, as opposed to the lies that are spread in the current media. From here, we work to use each and every ounce of our energy for an outcome that is to make our country the greatest, and not because we have the best weapons, not because we're the richest, nor do we have the best technology, not because we live in this land, but rather because we are the reason that love, humanity, peace, mercy, and hope should be restored in these dark and dismal times of war and hunger and disease. I do not want to hear from anyone about how difficult it is to live in this world. I want to hear that whatever the problem is, American Muslims can solve it. And if you're really proud to be an American, then work to become the solution of all the issues and stop being the blockade to peace and harmony. There's a lot of passion and there's a lot of pain. There's anger and there's confusion. There's nothing that we cannot solve here by actually putting our belief into action. There's nothing that we cannot fix here by actually using our human tools, the ability to learn and to do things. If motivation was ever lacking before, our 3 martyrs in North Carolina have given us enough reason to come together, put our differences aside, and make this country what only an American Muslim is capable of making it. If other faiths want to join in, then you're always welcome with open arms. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakumullah khair, everybody, for coming out to this important event, and Jazakumullah khair to ICC, the board, Ahmed always, the entire ICC community for hosting this, because this is a really important discussion that we want to have, inshallah. And so the point of this event is to help us move forward as a community. You know, this was a situation that was very emotional for us, the events, the unfortunate and unnecessary taking of 3 young, bright lives. It was something that was emotional for us. It's something that touched every single one of us, because it could have been any of our children, could have been any of us. And just like Yasser was mentioning, that even though we didn't know them, it feels like we knew them. It feels like they were right here within our community. It feels like they were the people that we prayed next to in this masjid. And so it's something that affected us deeply. And so as a community, there's a value in talking about these issues, talking about what caused it, and helping us to move forward, inshallah, as a community, to make sure that we take the lessons from this, that it will never happen again, and we'll make sure our community is moving in a positive direction, inshallah. So just really quick, Linda is here. They're just outside parking, inshallah, so she'll be up here shortly. So just a quick rundown of how this will go. What we'll do, inshallah, is when Linda comes here, she'll give her insight on what's been going on, a quick introduction to the lives of these 3 amazing young people, and kind of let us know what's been happening on the ground, inshallah. And then after that, we want to hear from you, that we want to open this up for the community, that this is more of a discussion rather than just a lecture or people talking to you. So you want to get your thoughts on what's been going on. We'll have a few discussion points. You'll be able to ask Linda any questions that you may have, inshallah. But before getting there, you know, and again, we want the vibe, and we want this environment that we're talking, we want it to be a positive environment. We want it to be optimistic, because the Prophet ﷺ was optimistic. This was his sunnah, to be optimistic. So we don't want to be, too down, and we don't want to be too depressed. We want to make this optimistic. But at the same time, we want to be, a real of what's been going on. That unfortunately, there's a hostile environment that's been, harboring and festering around us. It's been pushed by media. If you look at the public discourse on Islam and Muslims, it's been so negative, and unfortunately, we're seeing things come to light. And there's reports all over the country of people being harassed, being attacked, just because they're identifiably Muslim. And just this morning, subhanAllah, I'm sure many of us have heard that there was a masjid in Houston that caught fire. And our worst fear was that, that this was a deliberate attack, and we were praying and we were hoping that it was just an accident. But just this afternoon, the preliminary investigation revealed that it was actually a deliberate setting the fire to that masjid in Houston, a huge masjid, and it's just nothing now, it's ashes. So this is the real environment, and this is something we have to confront. And so inshallah, for our sake and for our benefit, I think it's good to at least talk about some safety issues. Because this masjid in Houston, one mistake that the leaders, the community leaders of that masjid, that they admit that they made, was the night before the masjid caught fire, there was multiple people who drove by the masjid and were hurling insults at people, were throwing stuff at the masjid, and they didn't report it. They just said, oh, these are probably just kids, that are fooling around and who are acting up. It's not a big deal. And subhanAllah, we see what happened with the masjid. And so, I think, as a community, we have to be realistic. We shouldn't shy away from being Muslims. We shouldn't just, hide ourselves and try to disguise ourselves from being Muslim. No, but I think at the same time, we should take the safety precautions. And that is that if you see anything threatening, if you see anything suspicious, report it to the police. If you see any suspicious activity outside this masjid or any masjid around, report it to the police, inshallah. Because it's better to be safe than sorry. And, I know a lot of sisters have been afraid to go outside even after this last week. My sisters themselves are saying that they're a little bit afraid of even going outside. So this is a real fear that people are having. So if you're outside and you don't feel safe going someplace, bring somebody with you. Again, it's better to be safe than sorry. So bring somebody with you. And don't shy away from reporting this to the police. That's what the police are here for. And if you have any qualms about it, call us at CARE, and inshallah we'll help you report this as well. So please be safe out there, be vigilant, be aware of your surroundings, see what's going on. And again, if you see anything suspicious, please report it.
Assalamu alaikum, sisters and brothers. I actually didn't come directly from New York. I actually came to you from Madison, Wisconsin. So I'll share a little bit about why I was in Madison, Wisconsin. For the past 2 days, almost 3 days now, I've been working with the Barakat and Abu Salih families, the parents and the sisters and siblings of the Chappel shooting victims. It's been one of the most amazing experiences in my life, even through such a very devastating experience, to see the strength and iman in a family, even amidst losing their beautiful children. Sisters and brothers, we had 3 members of our community slaughtered execution style, bullets to the head. The young woman, Yusuf, had told her father on numerous occasions that she was afraid for her life from this man. He would see her in the apartment complex, and when he would see her, he would carry a gun, and he would touch his gun and look at her every time she came into the apartment complex. When they went to complain to the apartment complex manager, he told them the next time that happens, you call 911. The problem, sisters and brothers, there was never a next time, because the next time was they were dead. So when I walked in, I heard the brother talking about calling law enforcement. If you suspect at any moment that you are in danger, or someone is following you, or someone's making you feel unsafe, or you see certain people that are around you, it is not your job to decide whether or not that behavior is wrong, or to say it's not a big deal, but they didn't touch me, they didn't say anything to me. You are not law enforcement. Let law enforcement deal with it. So I was booked to go speak at the University of Wisconsin-Madison months ago. And on Wednesday morning, which was the day after the shooting, I wanted to send an email to the kids there, to the MSA, and say that I couldn't come. I just couldn't bring myself to leave. When I woke up in the morning, I got an email from the MSA at University of Madison, Wisconsin, saying, "We look forward to having you, sister. Can you come and facilitate a discussion with our people?" This is outside of the event that I was going to speak at. About 95% of the students that go to University of Madison, Wisconsin, who are Muslim, are not from there. So imagine, sisters and brothers, young Muslim sisters and brothers in a place like Madison, Wisconsin, without their mothers and fathers, without their sisters and brothers. These young people were traumatized. So I felt that I wanted to go. And I felt that I would be more effective in a place like Wisconsin than I would be in a place like North Carolina. So I went yesterday and we had a beautiful conversation. And we sat around in a big circle just like this. And I asked each person that was there, each young person, and there were some non-Muslims there, but majority of them were Muslims. And I asked these young kids, I said, just give me one word about how you're feeling, nothing more than one word. And these young people were saying, sad and confused, misunderstood, afraid. I don't feel like I belong. These are our young people in our community. This is what they're feeling. They feel unsafe, unprotected. And it is very important for us as a community to make sure that our young people are not afraid, that we protect them with everything that we have. Then there was a sister that was there that said that she takes a bus, and there's always a man on the bus who harasses her on the bus. And he calls her names, and he tells her one day, watch and see what I'm going to do to you. And that sister said, and I said to the sister, why haven't you told anybody about this? She said, because I don't want to make problems. We're always worrying about everybody else except for ourselves. Sisters and brothers, you are important. Your families are important. Don't worry about what trouble you're making for anybody. The well-being of our families, our communities, our masajid are much more important than what anybody outside of our community thinks. There is a masjid in Houston that has been burned down to ashes, sisters and brothers. Just imagine a beautiful masjid in Houston. This wasn't last year or 2 years ago. Was that just today or was that last night? This morning. Accelerator was used there. That means it was intentional, sisters and brothers. It wasn't somebody left the gas on or an electric socket blew up. Someone intended to burn down the masjid. A family in Dearborn, Michigan, a father in a supermarket, Kroger supermarket in Dearborn, Michigan, was beat bloody by a man. 2 men beat him bloody in front of his children while a 10-year-old son was trying to help his father fight in the supermarket. This is a public case. This all happened in the past 2.5 days, on top of the killing of 3 young people in our community. I'm not trying to instill fear in you, sisters and brothers. What I'm trying to say is that Islamophobia, hate against our communities is real in this country. Don't let anybody tell you that the bigots are the minority. Because it only takes one bigot to shoot 3 people. It only takes one bigot to burn down a masjid, and it takes 2 bigots to beat an Arab American man in a supermarket. What we need to do is a few things. Number 1, all of your elected officials in this area, you better be going to find statements that they've said against the hate crimes that are happening across the country. And if you have an elected official who hasn't said anything, they are complicit in these acts of hate against our community. They are supposed to be representing the best interests of all communities here. When these acts of hate happen, number two, who are your friends? Who are the churches that you work with? Where are the synagogues that you work with? Where are other Latino communities and black communities and others that you're working with? Sisters and brothers, we will never be protected if we are not working with other communities, more specifically other minority communities. We are not the first community to be targeted in this country. Burning of religious institutions, go ask black churches in this country about the burning of religious institutions. The burning of churches is not a new phenomenon in our country. Hate crimes is not a new phenomenon. We are not the first community to be attacked in this country. So how do we build solidarity with other communities to protect our community? This is the only way. If we stay like this as a family, what we're doing is we're isolating ourselves, which keeps us as more of a target than if we are banding together with other communities. Young people who are at college campuses. We were talking about this yesterday at the university that I was at. If we want other people in our college campuses to stand with us, ask yourself, when was the last time that you ever attended an event or you had coffee with someone who is from another club, a Latino club, a Jewish club at your school, not Hillel, no Zionist groups, but people in your college campus who are also doing good social justice work. So it's important, sisters and brothers, that we are working with other people, that we are sharing Islam with other people, not because we want to go on TV and say, why do you hate Islam? Because Islam is a religion of peace. This, sisters and brothers, doesn't work. Because the Islam that people are seeing is they're seeing ISIS chopping people's heads off. They're seeing murder, catastrophe. They're seeing people calling themselves Muslims, burning people alive. This is the Islam that people are seeing. We cannot sometimes blame people for thinking these things about us when this is all the media is speaking about. The Islam that we need to be showing is not just in Salah. When you come to the masjid, only the Muslims see you pray. No one knows what you're doing in the masjid. So how are you living real Islam publicly? And we talked about this yesterday. Living Islam publicly is not just about praying, because no one knows that you're praying at home or when you're going into a corner of your school or when you're coming to the masjid. Fasting, sisters and brothers, only you and Allah know if you're fasting. No one knows that you're fasting. So that can't be a way that you're presenting Islam to anyone. Charity. We don't give $50 to the masjid and then go around and tell everyone in the masjid, by the way, today I gave $50. So charity is something that you do between you and Allah. Nobody knows, and no one should know that you're doing that, because you're not doing it for the people, you're doing it for God, right? Pilgrimage, right? We go, for people who can, you go once, and if Allah gives you blessings, you go twice. But it's not something that you do every day. It's not something that other people experience or can't experience your Islam, right? Because if you're non-Muslim, you can't go to pilgrimage. And our last pillar of Islam is, or the first pillar of Islam is your declaration of the oneness of God and that the Prophet is his messenger, right? We don't go around every day in the street, every time we see someone in the street, we say, Ashhadu anna la ilaha illallah, and start explaining to people the oneness of God, right? So if the 5 pillars of Islam are something that is a relationship between us and our faith and God, how are you then teaching people about Islam? Teaching people about Islam, sisters and brothers, is showing up for other communities when they are facing injustice. Living Islam is going to a homeless shelter and feeding people. That is our Islam. That is our public Islam. Our public Islam is going to build relationships with other people, do good in the communities. And this is the beautiful thing about Diya and Yusr and Razan, is not only were they very faithful Muslims, right? They also live their faith out publicly in front of the people. There is not one dental student at UNC Chapel Hill or a student or professor in that school that can tell you that they were not only were they Americans, they were the most extraordinary Americans, and they happened to be Muslim. They were active on their college campus. They were active with the North Carolina chapter of the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund. They were the best volunteers for the Islamic Relief USA. Any organization that you call and say, who are your best volunteers in North Carolina, they will tell you the Barakats and the Abu Sa'abas. This is why they're being remembered in the way that they are remembered, because they have invested their faith in their community and the communities beyond their communities. So sisters and brothers, and their legacy, let's think about how we can engage in Islam more publicly, let people around us understand what our true faith is, because nothing that I'm saying is not what Islam already tells us to do, right? Islam is social justice. It's about working towards justice for everyone. And then what you will find is you will find people who are going to show up for our community. So I want to just say that I'm very privileged to be here. I want to hear what people are. This is your family here. So if you don't feel safe in a space like this to share how you're feeling, then how are you going to expect to feel safe outside of this masjid? So use this as an opportunity to share your thoughts and how you're feeling. And I want to tell you that every single day you need to be proud of who you are, especially my sisters in this room who wear hijab. We already live our faith out publicly every single day. We already defy the world by our existence and our choice to wear hijab and tell everyone before we even open our mouth that we are Muslim. So you need to understand that you need to be proud of the choice that you made. And you need to wear your hijab proudly, because you have nothing to be ashamed of and only the most to be proud of. So thank you, particularly for the sisters. Thank you for your courage and for your bravery and for representing us in our community. And for us and for all of us, stay confident. Don't show fear, right? Because we in our community, we only have one thing to fear, and that is only the fear of Allah, and that's it. Okay? So I don't know if you guys, did you guys do, when you opened, did you guys do like that half of them?
All right, Jazakallah khair, Sister Linda. So, for those of you who don't know, she's not even here in town for our event. She's actually here for something completely different. She told me that she was actually flying in, and when this happened, I asked her, would you feel comfortable speaking at like a community town hall meeting? And immediately, she's been up like 24 hours a day after this tragedy was complete, and she was like, yes, I'll do it. And I was like, are you sure? You're gonna be tired? I literally had to, shuttle her over from the airport. So really make dua for her, because she is going out of her way. She's not only supporting the family, she's been a big pillar for our community in the media as well, representing us the way that we want to be represented. And that's extremely important, because a lot of times historically Muslims have not been represented by people who truly reflect their community and the views of the community. And now we see true beacons of courage like this standing up and doing that. I'll just make a few quick comments, and then we can open it up for some discussion and what we're feeling, because we want everybody to sort of have some type of input on this as well. A lot of times when I'm here, I'm talking about Islamophobia and anti-Muslim sentiment, and what we're experiencing this week is the worst manifestation of Islamophobia that you can think of. Alhamdulillah, over the last 15 years or 14 years since 9/11, our community has not had to deal with a tragedy of this magnitude. But now, we saw a few years back in Oak Creek, Wisconsin, where a Sikh temple was shot up and 6 people from their congregation were killed. A lot of people were saying that the guy actually mistook them. He couldn't disseminate between Muslims and Sikhs. Basically, he was a neo-Nazi, and he went in and he massacred their community. And it was just a watershed moment in the American Sikh community as well. This may be our watershed moment here as American Muslims, because we can't look back at the past. Everything prior to what happened a few days ago is in the past. We need to look forward and how we're going to address these issues. We cannot be reactive on these types of issues, and we have to really stand up and look forward into what we're doing. So we talk a lot about Islamophobia like there's an industry that goes into it. There's a lot of money that's spent in spreading anti-Islam sentiment. So it's no coincidence that people who are on the fringes of society, who may be crazy, who may, have these extremist views, it just takes one person out of a, entire group of people to commit a crime like this. And so you see what happened in Chappel Hill, North Carolina. So that's one of the things. We talked about some safety precautions and things of that nature, but we also want to talk about how are we going to shift this forward. What has been the narrative that's come out since the beginning of these crimes? When these crimes initially happened, pretty much everybody in the Muslim community felt like this has to be a hate crime. Like, we experience Islamophobia on a day-to-day basis, especially our sisters who are wearing hijab on a day-to-day basis. You know, people who are being harassed just for wearing a headscarf, people, you know, while you're driving, road rage, a lot of these different things that are happening. So when we see something that's, you know, as deliberate and, you know, as she outlined the grim reality of these crimes, to all of us in the community, it was like, this is definitely a hate crime. There's no way that somebody could just go into somebody's house and, you know, murder 3 people execution style. And like, I mean, there's some more details that are out there. I don't want to get into all of that stuff because that's immaterial. But for us, that was definitely a hate crime. But what was the narrative that came out in the media right afterward? This was a parking dispute. This is what every single mainstream media outlet was talking about. Like, you know, this was not really a hate crime. This was some type of, you know, dispute for parking spaces. When in the history of the world have you seen 3 people murdered on the basis of a parking dispute? It's completely absurd. And so you see that narrative being pushed forward in the mainstream media. But now, it's not just about the mainstream media anymore. We see social media pushing back against these narratives. Like, we're, you know, within minutes of this crime coming out, and when they released the information on who the killer was, we had journalists, you know, like journalists who were actually real journalists going out there. They were staying up all night. They looked through this guy's Facebook account. They saw he had tons of pictures of his guns. He posted pictures of guns like they were his own children. Usually we take pictures of our kids, you know, like smiling. His children were basically his guns. He had very extremist, you know, the militant sort of atheist viewpoints as well. A lot of his, you know, his rants were against religion. So there's a lot of things that pointed to the fact that this, you know, this guy was very unstable. He glorified the gun culture, and that's the thing. In America, there's a high correlation between the pervasive gun culture that's out there and Islamophobia. A lot of the Islamophobes like to, you know, I don't know if you've been paying attention to the news the last few weeks, but there have been a few anti-Islam rallies in Texas where people are showing up with their open carry, you know, like they have open carry permits, so they're carrying AK-47s outside of, you know, Muslim events. There was a Muslim day in Capitol Hill in Austin, Texas. One of their state representatives, Molly White, said, you know, I'm gonna make all of the Muslims who show up for this Capitol Day take a loyalty oath, and I'm going to put an Israeli flag on the table to show them, like, you know, I want to see who the true patriots are, basically. And there were people outside of this rally with guns, with, you know, the most heinous signs, you know, basically just defaming our religion as a whole. No Sharia here in the U.S., you know, blah, blah, blah. So this intersection of gun culture and Islamophobia definitely exists, and that's why we as a community have to stand up. But changing the narrative, so after these journalists stood up and they researched what this was all about, they're saying, no, this guy's not, you know, this was not about a parking dispute. And we, you know, we've been pushing, you know, we push hard against this narrative. This is definitely not a parking dispute. This needs to be investigated as a hate crime. Kara's done a great job at pushing that narrative and, like, you know, getting all the information out there. A lot of the, you know, allied journalists as well are doing a great job as well. So that's what we as a community have to do, you know. Maybe if this was another community that was targeted, and this is definitely the case, you know, like, you would see a much easier sort of highlighting of these crimes. But we as a community, we're going to have to scratch and claw for every little piece of justice that we get. And that'll just make justice that much more sweeter when we actually do achieve it. You know, Obama didn't really say anything about this crime. It was 72 hours after the crime until he actually, you know, released a statement on it. But it was due to pressure from, you know, people online, you know, whether it's on Twitter, you know, different journalists saying that, you know, you stood up and you said something, you condemned like this killing, you condemned this killing. Why aren't you saying something to support the Muslim community? There's pervasive Islamophobia that's out there. Why are you not standing up? Finally today, this morning, they stood up and they actually said something. You know, it's a token, but at the same time, you're seeing the effects of activism and standing up. You know, it's not going to be one person, it's not going to be Linda, it's not going to be myself, it's going to be the whole of our community standing up and doing these types of acts in order to get there. Finally, just looking at these people, you know, the people who lost their lives in this horrible attack, you know, these were people who I have never met them, obviously, but these very well could have been like, one of us, one of our friends. This, Dia, he seems like somebody I would have gone and played basketball with. You see like their sense of humor, in their Twitter postings. These could have easily been like, somebody from our own community. You're seeing in these short lives, 23 years old, 21 years old, 19 years old, they lived a full life of service in those short periods of time. So we as community members, we shouldn't say, okay, I'm going to wait until I get out of med school and then I'm going to spend all this money and I'm going to like stand up and work then, or I'm going to wait until I'm out of law school. These people weren't waiting. They were still in school. They got married, they were still in school, they were standing up. He had a charity where he was raising money to go do dental work on Syrian refugees. His goal was $20,000, which is great when you're doing just a college type assignment. He's raised over $200,000 posthumously. So that charity that people are giving to him is like barakah in his account basically. It's going to keep going, keep rewarding him as well. Those are truly blessed people. They were big champions for the cause of Syrians and Palestinians as well. So these are people that we, as elders in the generation and even as students, we should emulate as well. I'll close on that.